What's up, guys? We're here at AMC Town Square Chasing Cinema.
Mr. James Hsu.com,
and we're here to swing in
to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I was in maybe the first 6 rows a couple years ago at CinemaCon when Phil Lord and Chris Miller took the stage at CinemaCon to announce that they were going to be doing a Spider-Man animated movie. And while that was many years ago and some things had shifted since then, because obviously they weren't the directors of the film, though they did have some credits, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is now here.
You're talking about Solo?
No,
is that what you're referencing?
Spider-Man.
They're still the directors of this?
No. Chris Miller and Phil Lord are not the directors of Spider-Man.
I did not know. Whose is?
There's 3 names, and they're names that I cannot remember off the top of my head. Ramsey and some other thing, but they are not the filmmakers.
They were though, right?
They were originally slated for the pictures.
So they've been fired for both?
I don't think they were fired. I think they just moved on. I think they were just working more in producer sense.
So they're fired from both?
No, I don't know if they were fired.
Holy crap.
Just like Peter Jackson and Moorlander, I think he just kind of passed it along. I will say, I think I saw Phil Lord's name more than I saw Chris Miller's in the credits. So, but yeah, they are not the directors of this movie. But anyway, a very highly anticipated movie. A movie that...
Did not know that, dog.
Until recently, was holding 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it's like 98 now.
Yes. Which is still amazing. A great movie to be hearing about, and I was very excited for. Peter Ramsey, Robert Persichetti Jr., and Rodney Rothman.
Did not know that, bro.
So,
thank you, Kent.
And thinking that might be a little worrisome for people. But going into this movie,
I don't even know who any of those 3 are.
At the end of Venom, we got a sneak peek of this movie, and I was like, I'm in. I'm all in. Let's do it. Let's change the game, because in my world, in my head, I think that there probably isn't a better avenue to tell great superhero stories than animation. I think animation is so much freeing. We've seen so many great animated films prior to the big Marvel boom that have been really, really great, mostly Batman animated movies.
Mask of the Phantasm.
Yes, absolutely. But I think, you just have so much room to, and I was just wonder why it's taken so long them to really kind of make a big animated superhero movie. And now we have Spider-Man, the world's most popular superhero. Mr. Hsu, what did you think of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
Well, when I first heard that this movie coming out, I said, that's stupid. Right off the bat, I said, that's stupid.
Why?
I don't know. Out of every
because
superhero...
it's animated?
No, out of every superhero, I just don't care about Spider-Man. I don't get it. Spider-Man, out of all the toys, I believe, he's the highest selling Marvel toy.
Yeah. Out
of all of them. Just, no one sells, there's nothing was sold more than Spider-Man toys.
I would think if it's not Batman, it would be Spider-Man for just like...
No, Marvel.
Okay. Yeah, no.
For Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like #1.
Yeah.
And I never get it. I watch all this, I've seen every Spider-Man movie, but none of them have just been like, I don't really care.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Spider-Man too.
Yeah, I don't care about them.
And I really love Homecoming.
I like them.
Yeah, but
and I like Homecoming, but none of them are like, I don't care about Spider-Man. So I'm already not excited about this. Saw the first trailer, I said, wow, that's pretty interesting animation. Yeah, because it's like freezing and it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. So anyway, walked into the movie and I was delightfully surprised. This movie was absolutely phenomenal. This movie was absolutely amazing. No pun intended. It was amazing though. The movie was great. I guess we'll start with Spider-Gwen. Didn't let me down.
Hailee Steinfeld.
Yep, and I like her and her music.
Yeah.
And she has Bumblebee next week. And then we have the anime one, the anime spider robot, whatever. I thought that was funny. I really enjoyed that.
Never knew that existed until this movie.
Kingpin.
Yep.
But noir Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That guy, dude. And then Nick Cage. Nick Cage in the voice was hilarious. I thought that was hilarious. And then noir is black and white, and then here he is trying to figure out a Rubik's Cube. How's he ever supposed to figure that out? He don't see color. It's hilarious. That's hilarious to me. And then they have the out of Spider-Man 3 is like the ultimate torture test for me, because it's like, what were you thinking that Toby Grace? No, not Toby Grace.
Toby Grace was Venom in that movie.
Yeah, how could you?
Topher Grace.
Yeah, there you go. How could you think Topher Grace could be Venom? Like, who thought that would fit?
He does hate Spider-Man 3. He brings it up all the time.
Who thought that would ever fit? And then they couldn't have done any better with that.
And they did the dance part
in the movie.
3. Yeah.
They had me, and then the animation didn't let me down. Kingpin was freaking like just this brutal, just like big, literally big, literally hulking guy.
He went. I mean, granted, I love the idea. Go on. I'll get into it.
Aunt May was fine, and then the Dr. Ock appearance was awesome. There wasn't really anything I didn't like about this movie. I don't
okay. So you ran down a lot, but what about Peter Parker and Miles Morales?
Oh, I'm a fan now of Miles Morales. I never was a fan of him prior to this. I'm a fan of him now. And then the Peter Parker, I thought they kept on escalating his fat part. I thought that was hilarious too. There's like so many parts of this movie I thought was funny, and then that made me sad about MJ, him and MJ in his world. And then hopefully he's gonna try to fix that. Hopefully it does get fixed and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Miles Morales. He was awesome, and then he had the Jordans on the whole time. I loved it.
Was this movie to you just kind of a fun, like just a fun sidebar off of a superhero movie, or like do you give this movie reverence in terms of like the better superhero movies that have been made?
I don't know if I can compare this to live action, but I will say that this movie made me feel like it was a comic book.
Yeah.
In fact, there were certain scenes where you're like, oh my god, we're literally in a comic book right now.
I would argue mostly every scene I felt was that way, and that's what I wanted to say about Kingpin. You know, like, granted, I understand the just natural wanting to kind of bring these characters into the real world and to make them realistic, and we got Kingpin and Daredevil, which I thought was a really, really great adaptation. But the one thing I loved about Kingpin in this movie is that he's a larger-than-life character. Like, granted, of course, Peter Parker, all these characters are larger than life, but it really gives that villain this, you know, really great arc. He's huge. He's massive. You know, Ken came out of the movie talking about the fact that how does he get through an elevator? How does he fit in a car? Because he's bigger than a car. It's always bigger than the elevator. And I just love kind of getting back to that classic idea that this character physically can't exist in the real world because of his eccentricities. He's so massive and monstrous. And granted, the Kingpin that I grew up with, you know, from the animated shows, was not that big, but seeing him kind of exaggerated brings you back to that feel of comics. And obviously it helps that we're set in a world that really does feel like a comic book. I would argue that I've not seen a movie yet that has replicated more of the feeling of reading a comic book than this movie. In that sense, I would argue it is one of the most impressive superhero movies ever made. This movie really left a mark on me. Not only do I consider it one of the better superhero movies ever made, not only do I consider it the best animated movie this year, I consider it one of the best movies out of this year. I think this movie was, it was so funny. The first thing I thought about when I watched this movie was Cirque du Soleil. And I know that's going to sound kind of weird, but anytime Cirque du Soleil, if you aren't familiar, depending on where you are in the world, they are a big,
circus show.
Like a big circus show, an acrobatic thing. They have a lot of shows on the Strip, and the one thing that everyone says when they walk into or walk out of a Cirque du Soleil show is that there's something going on everywhere. You can't see everything. This movie is so visually overwhelming. There is so much stuff to see in this movie. In the final fighting sequence alone, the background, the elements that they are in is constantly transforming into things that, like, it is just so out there that it creates this whole other world. Like, in the idea that we're constantly shifting against all these dimensions, it creates a new dimension of itself. And just visually, I've never seen anything like it. And I'm not trying to kind of cut down animation and saying like, oh, animation is, you know, a kid's, and it's the total opposite. I think if anything, movies like this prove that animation could be a medium that could be used for a very serious movie and an artistic, really boundary pushing movie. And I thought Into the Spider-Verse was exactly that. It was hilarious. It hits the idea of the kid movie. It hits the idea of a superhero movie, but at the end of the day, I think this movie is just like a really groundbreaking movie in general, an artistic level.
We've never seen anything like it.
I've never seen anything like it.
For sure.
Let me kind of go back now to some other aspects. So, Miles Morales, I think a character that obviously I knew about, but not knowing much about, obviously me not being a big Spider-Man fan too. And what I was saying when we were talking earlier, I would think besides Batman, if it's not Batman, it has to be Spider-Man to be like the greatest, you know, the most profitable superhero of all time. Spider-Man has, he's huge. He's huge with kids. And granted, like, Spider-Man wasn't my character. Obviously, I was Batman, you were Superman. Like, the Marvel world never really, but I've always enjoyed Spider-Man. I think it is a great story. I think the idea of really, you know, it's killer that this movie comes out too after the passing of Stan Lee, because Stan Lee really, really did some work and said, you know what, I'm tired of everyone being adults and all of these characters being older. What if a kid was given this responsibility? And obviously, we have been watching this journey for years now, and almost, and now Spider-Man is getting up there with Batman and the amount of movies that he has out. I don't think he's gotten that close, but still, there are a ton of Spider-Man movies out. And I will say, for the majority, I've always enjoyed them. Besides the exception of 3 and the exception of Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Which is better than 3.
Yeah, they both feel very similar in the sense that they're just like, what were you thinking? and I mean, Jamie Foxx's Electro in Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2 is almost as bad to me as Topher Grace's Venom. To be honest, when I think back at Spider-Man 3, I don't think of Topher Grace as being the major problem in that movie. It was just
dancing.
Everything.
Emo Spider-Man was the problem.
Emo Spider-Man was definitely the problem. I will never forget the audience reaction when that moment happened. Everyone was like, huh?
He's tap dancing on a table.
But, of course, we're in the era of self-aware movies. And movies that can make fun of themselves, so of course,
I loved
it.
But
in the first 10 minutes, we get that shot, we get that kind of.
They had me right
jab
there, bro.
I knew it.
They had me right there, dude.
I knew you would have loved that moment because you were the first thing that I thought of when I saw it. I was like, oh man, she's gonna love this.
Yeah, they had me.
But I think the fighting sequences, the art. There's just so much kind of to really just bite into that it's a movie that I want to watch again because I feel like there's so much that I missed visually. From little things to the streets of the city and billboards and things like that, I just heard there is so much to grasp onto. It's not something you can catch all in viewing. And of course, animation, visual effects have constantly pushed boundaries and they've always given us new things, but I've just never seen anything like this before. And that's so rare to say. And even though it's about a character that we've seen way probably too much in the past couple years, not saying that he doesn't deserve the airtime, but come on, 3 reboots, that's a lot, he's kind of the joke of that. It was
and the worst part, between 3 and 1, there was actually some time off, but there was no time off from 2 to back to a Homecoming. No. Literally no, reboot it again.
Well, because I think it's for obvious reasons,
the
just
Marvel
screwing up Batman. Yeah, you can't screw up one of the most profitable characters in the world. You need to make sure that he's good because you need to keep pumping out toys. You don't want people to hate Spider-Man.
No.
But I think, I love the characters in this movie. Obviously, learning about these new characters, Spider-Gwen, who I had heard but I had never really experienced before. Her. The anime Spider-Man, which I didn't even know was a thing. Noir Spider-Man was great. Nicolas Cage. All I kept thinking about was Kick-Ass because he played a superhero in that movie. But he was very good. I thought very cool character. And just seeing all these characters intertwined. Of course, they have these great kid-friendly joke moments of them all hiding in the ceiling, which is in the trailer. You have the pig who is just there pretty much for the kid jokes. You also have some really very funny social commentary. You also have some really, really great witty lines, and of course, a lot of emotion. I think there is a storyline in here that I don't want to spoil.
Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala Ali. Really great angle with that character. There's just so much going on in this movie. There's so much to really dive into, and I think it really just hits all the points that I'm looking for when I'm watching a movie. Was I emotionally invested? Was I visually impressed? Did this movie do something technically that makes it stand out? And on every note, it hit everything that I wanted, and I just kind of disappeared. Jake the critic disappeared for a moment, and the 7-year-old comic book reading nerd that I used to be, or still am, just kind of came out and was just enjoying the movie. And I'm not saying that it's only, and that's the one thing I guess I'm just really trying to push. I'm not saying that this movie's only good because it made me a kid again. It was a funny movie. This movie, I think, hit the kid in me, hit the film critic in me, and just the overall moviegoer in me that I think it really just nailed all the categories. I love this movie, and I know there's more to talk about, but I think I made my point.
Love it all.
Doc Ock, so cool. No spoilers, but Doc Ock was awesome. Just so much good stuff. Every character, oh man, they all looked great. Except for Scorpion. Scorpion didn't leave much of an impression on me, but that's
true.
Okay.
The only thing I could ask for more is, in this one, he didn't really become Spider-Man until the last fight.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't use his powers.
It's another origin story.
So this,
which is also a great angle for the whole entire movie.
Oh, and it's funny how they keep
yeah.
Here we go again.
Here we go again.
And I love how they're making fun of themselves.
Yes.
That's hilarious. Anyway, I'm sure there'll be a part 2.
Yes.
Or they've already announced the all-female,
the
all-female one with Spider-Gwen, the robot anime one, and they're gonna more.
Yeah.
But I hope they make another one with Miles Morales. But now he's full-fledged Spider-Man kicking butt. I want to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I really loved Homecoming, and like I said earlier, I think Spider-Man 2 still holds up as one of the better superhero movies ever made. But I honestly could say that, yeah, I guess I'm a big mark for Doc Ock. I could honestly say that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse probably is like top 3 super. I mean, I'm trying to think, and I know we always talk about this. Sometimes you're just so hyped after seeing something that it's all the jazz. But I know this is gonna be a movie that I think will be and hopefully opens the door for more wide release animated movies. And plus the idea, for people who don't know comics, granted everyone kind of has to understand somewhat of comics to understand the Marvel Cinematic, you know, but a lot of people don't understand the whole universe thing. You know, a lot of people don't understand that there are multiple universes where different things happen.
They explain this so well.
They do an amazing job with it, and I would just love, I mean, I at this point you have me. Let's go explore other universes. I mean, and just, the animation outlet is great because you say this is an offshoot. This is not I mean, of course it's canon with comic books, but it's not canon with our movies. Like if DC did a Batman one or if Superman one, it doesn't affect their storyline, even though DC really doesn't have a story. Has a you know, but they're great offshoots and they work. And I think if they kind of I can't say enough good things about this movie.
I love it. We also did reviews for Natalie Portman's brand new potential Oscar-worthy film, Vox Lux.
Vox Lux.
And then we also did a review for
Mortal Engines.
Peter Jackson.
Yes.
So it could be huge.
Make sure to go watch all of those.
Then you'll know about those
films.
And
then next week is our probably last premiere of the year. We're going to be here at AMC Town Square at 10 o'clock, premiering Aquaman.
That was me
Bumblebee.
speaking to the dolphins. Mary Poppins Returns.
Is that how dolphins sound?
No.
Okay. Bumblebee, Mary Poppins Returns, and Spoonful of Sugar. So
Makes the medicine go down.
Yes, that was my... and then the Jennifer Lopez movie, Second Act.
Yes.
We'll all be next week.
Which I personally will be a huge fan for.
Pretty much, if there's no excuse not to come out, because there is something for everyone.
Yes.
Make sure to come check out these movies, because it's going to be the last time we're all together. And what better way to kind of close out the year with your friends at the movies? There's a lot of good stuff coming out, and I think it's going to be a great time.
JasonCinema.com is known as
the Film Lovers website.